Good afternoon, and welcome to the Fireside chat on mental health and wellness at the workplace, hosted by Progress Place and the Rotary Club of Toronto. We are hosting this webinar today to highlight the importance of Progress Place, mental health wellness, and how employment plays a key role in the recovery process. I'm Hilary Brown, and I will be the moderator of our virtual event. To start off our webinar today, I would like to read out the City of Toronto's land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that we are on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississauga of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. And this is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. For our webinar today, we have three panelists. We have Tonia Jahshan, who is CEO of Sipology, Sophia Morgage, who is a member of Progress Place, and Jane Lee, teacher of yoga, meditation, and life coach. They will share their experiences related to mental health and wellness and employment. After we hear from them, we'll have time for a few questions, we hope, that could be put in the chat function of our webinar. Progress Place is a community-based mental health center, and it's dedicated to improving the lives of people living with mental illness. It offers programs and services which provide opportunities for recovery through friendship, employment, education, housing, and recreation in a welcoming and accessible environment of support, respect, and dignity. It is connected to a global network of clubhouses that all follow the same principles and values. Progress Place has assisted in keeping countless members out of the hospital and instead flourishing in their own communities every day of every week for over 35 years. Teamwork is used to blur the lines between members and staff in workplace environments, both in-house and at paid employment placements with our community partners. Members can access a continuum of supports from case management, employment, recreation, to health and wellness. At the center of clubhouse programming is the work ordered day, which mirrors a typical working day. Members and staff work in partnership to run all aspects of the organization, from reporting statistics for funders, preparing almost 1,000 meals per week, and developing our monthly podcast. As a clubhouse, the belief is in the restorative power of work, social connection, and community. I now have the pleasure of introducing our first panelist, who is Tonia Jahshan, CEO of Sipology. Her company, Steeped Tea, began in a basement and became a multi-million-dollar company. That road to success had its ups and downs, and passion was often challenged by doubt. But perseverance, commitment, and focus are the center and at the core of what Tonia believes in. And it not only kept her on that road, but helped her inspire others. In sharing her story, she wants to make the road a little smoother for those who've had a plan of their own for personal success. So Tonia, tell us your story.
Hey, thanks, Hilary. That was a great introduction. I'm always amazed at how different every introduction is, but that was very good. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I am Tonia Jahshan, and I'm the founder of Steeped Tea, now called Sipology. And I started this company 15 years ago in my basement. My husband and I were just newlyweds, married only 6 months, decided that we wanted to have a family right away. And luckily I did get pregnant almost like instantaneously. But unfortunately, about 12 weeks into that pregnancy, I lost it. And it was something that I wasn't expecting. I don't think anyone actually expects to have a miscarriage, but it's kind of, I look back at it now and I think about how many people don't talk about miscarriages because it's quite common amongst women. But it really sent me into a bit of a depression. My husband noticed it right away and he said, why don't we go away? Let's just go on a weekend vacation and let's just get our minds off of what just happened. So he asked me, where do you want to go? And I said, well, you know what? I've never been out east, never been to Nova Scotia. And it was the end of June and it was lobster season. So I'm like, I want to go. I want to have some lobster. So we got on a plane. I booked a whole bunch of bed and breakfasts for us for the 4 days that we were there. And the very first bed and breakfast that we stayed at, they served us this most amazing loose leaf tea called Cream of Earl Grey. And everything about this tea just made me happy. The smell of it, the taste of it. It was unlike any tea bag that I've ever drank, which I'm traditionally I've always been a tea drinker. I have coffee once a day, but mostly it was always tea. And I couldn't believe the taste difference between a tea bag and loose leaf tea. So I went to the little tea shop down in Mahone Bay where this owner had gotten it from. And I brought a whole bunch of this tea home, started introducing it to my friends and family, and they all loved it too. So that was the spark that I needed in my brain, that I was like, you know what, I'm going to start a company called Steep Tea, and I'm going to start introducing loose leaf tea to everyone. So I started the company in 2006, October. It took a while actually to get it off the ground. I remember having my very first tea event at my house, introducing the company to all my friends and family, and not a single person wanted to have a party for me. I was like, okay, so I guess we're gonna have to go this hard way. I'm gonna start to cold calling people. So I ultimately did get that one event under my belt. And from that event, I booked 8 more. And things just sort of like really got busy really fast for me. And 4 months into my business, I got pregnant again. This time everything was going well. And I knew that I had a good feeling that it was going to progress and I was going to have a baby very soon. So I incorporated the company in 2007, decided I wanted to go the direct sales route. I was very familiar with direct sales and wanted to offer this opportunity of selling our tea to other women and men in Ontario. So we brought on our very first consultant in 2007, and for the next 4 years, we grew this tea party business into, I had about 100 people underneath me. Our sales at the time, I think, were about $250,000 a year in tea sales, which was a lot, I think, for a startup company. And by 2000, by the way, this was all in my basement. For 5 years, this company was in my basement. I was the tea bagger. I was the shipper. My garage was the shipping department. It's nuts to think back and look at the pictures, but that's what you have to do when you start a business. So in 2010, my husband joined the company full-time as CEO. Hadam is a very business-minded person. He has this MBA from the University of Rotman, Toronto, and we grew this company to great heights. And one of the biggest things that we did was in 2012, we went on Dragon's Den, and obviously that's I didn't even put my timer on, guys. You better tell me how much time I have left. Oh, did I put my timer on? No, I didn't. Oh my gosh. Bad. Anyways, we went on Dragon's Den. That's a whole other story, but we went on Dragon's Den, created a bidding war between all of the dragons, ended up partnering with Jim Treliving and David Chilton, who to this day are still partners in the company. After Dragon's Den, explosive growth happened. We went from 100 consultants to 3,000, literally almost overnight. But with that kind of growth comes a lot of pressure. By this time, I had 3 children. Sammy, I was pregnant with Sammy, my son, on the show with Dragon's Den. So, the reason I tell this story is because a lot of that growth in that time period of the 3 years after Dragon's Den, I certainly was not taking care of myself at all. My mental health was the last priority on my plate. I had a second miscarriage in between Layla and Jenna, which I never really acknowledged. I never acknowledged any of the miscarriages that I had, which was a big mistake because I think mentally they take a toll on you. But because I was so consumed with the business and growing it that I just didn't, I just swept it under the rug. And it was something I didn't want to talk about, to be honest. I found that I felt that mental health was, there was such a strong stigma to it that I didn't want people to think I was weak. And what a big mistake that was. 2018, I hit rock bottom. we had a situation at work that became very, very toxic and hostile, and it was a very unexpected and out of the blue, and it was just the last straw for my mental health. And in February of 2018, I started getting my mind was racing terribly, and then I started shaking uncontrollably. Couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. I was doing very weird things. I started smoking. I don't smoke. Started drinking heavily. I don't drink heavily. Started doing things like going into finding dark, tight spaces wherever I could in my house and hiding there, sometimes sleeping there, like very, very odd behavior. And by the time June rolled around that same year, by May, of course, I actually knew that that was in big trouble, because I started thinking, I started having suicidal thoughts and thinking that, you know what, my family was better off without me. And that was the moment when I knew I better get help right now, because this could go very badly for me. And so I reached out to Homewood. Homewood is a mental health hospital in Guelph. I got on the waiting list because there's a long wait list. But based on what they knew about me and what was going on with me, they got me in quite quickly. And I spent 6 weeks there, 6 weeks away from my family, away from my business. It was hard, and nobody knew. It was a secret. The only people that knew was my husband. Not even my children didn't know what was going on. They thought I was on an extended trip. I'm sure they probably figured out there was something quite wrong, but that was a wake-up moment for me. And so after my 6 weeks in the hospital, I came out, still wasn't 100%. You will never be 100%. Once you have I was diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder. And I hate the word generalized because it seems so like not a big deal, but it really is actually a big deal. Generalized anxiety disorder is something that I will live with for the rest of my life. And I have to manage it with the different tools that I learned in the hospital. So by 2019, I decided that I wasn't going to, no one knew until August of 2019 what had happened to me. I'm like this all the time. See this face, how happy it is and how bubbly I am. I'm very good at disguising my true anxiety and my depression by this face and this personality. But by 2018, I knew that I couldn't keep this a secret anymore. Not because not because of any reason other than the fact that I just didn't want to be a hypocrite, and I didn't want to keep this secret to myself. I wanted to be able to help other people, and especially in our organization. And so I announced in 2019 in August at the end of the year. First, I had a big staff meeting. We have about 60 employees here at our head office. And I told them what had happened and told them that, we were going to be partnering with a couple of mental health organizations, one being Kids Help Phone and Crisis Text Line. And this is why. And I don't think there was a dry eye in the building. They all felt relieved that I told them. They felt like they could tell their story themselves. Next, I came out to 10,000 of our consultants. Very scary, because my husband was a little worried that this could have gone the other way. Maybe they would have felt, I don't know if I really want to belong to a company where the founder has mental health issues. Absolutely. And that was a big risk that I took, but I was like, you know what? I'm doing it. I don't really care what they think. So the people who don't want to support me, they can leave.
And so that I'm going to jump in so that actually you found that worked right away, that total disclosure.
Absolutely.
Following your feeling that you're fighting the stigma of mental illness. You want to lift the stigma, I assume, of mental illness. And people accepted that right away?
They did. A lot, I shouldn't say a lot. There's probably a few that I don't even know about that maybe felt that, they didn't want to be a part of my company anymore, but they never expressed that to me. And the amount of people that might have been a possibility with is very small in comparison to the people who were so supportive. And here's why. Because everybody has an issue. Everybody has some sort of mental health problem. Whether you yourself have a mental health problem or you know somebody who does, everybody in their life is affected by it. And this is what I'm trying to get. That's the message I'm trying to get out to people. You know, we have issues. And the more we talk about it, the better it's going to be for people. Because the worst thing that I think people can do is be silent. Silence is a trap. When you keep it all inside, that's when things start to get out of control. And whether you talk to a good friend or a family member who is supportive of you, or you go and talk to a professional, you have got to talk to somebody if you're feeling out of control. Yeah.
So, and just tell us briefly, what treatment did you get initially at that hospital in Guelph for 6 weeks?
Right. So
did you have medication? Did you have shock treatment?
So I was, first of all, they put me on medication. So they're, for the first week, that was like, you know, based on questionnaires and talking and stuff like that. They prescribed medication for me. Some of the people that were there with me did receive shock treatment. I didn't myself. Another thing I really want people to understand about a mental health hospital, it's not what you think it is. You know, it's not one flew over the cuckoo's nest. Like, I know there might be hospitals out there that might look like that, but it wasn't my experience. And I was with true, like, professionals. I was with doctors. It can happen to anyone.
Yes, basically. Absolutely. That's really a fascinating story. And it is true that it affects, what is it, 1 in 5 people, at least, at a very minimum. So, yeah, it is a very general thing. And that's a fascinating story.
And now more than ever, Hilary, because of this pandemic,
exactly.
I think actually the pandemic has had, it's a double-edged sword. I think that it's actually made people more aware of mental health. The people who maybe naysayers and didn't believe in it now have actually felt it themselves. And I think it's actually been a positive for the stigma, to be honest.
Yeah, well, good. That's a good positive note. Well, let's go on. Thank you so much, Tonia. That's great. We now have our second speaker, who's Jane Lee. She's an experienced yoga teacher of 8 years. She has personal yoga and meditation practice of 18 plus years, and she teaches yoga, meditation, and also offers coaching. Her goal is to simply help others live healthier and happier lives. After 15 years as a digital and marketing professional for Fortune 500 companies, she left the corporate world to focus on health and wellness full-time. Through yoga and meditation, she has transformed her own life. She survived cancer, and she supported others. At Progress Place, we personally experienced Jane's passion, dedication, and commitment, as she's been offering virtual yoga and meditation to the members of Progress Place on a weekly basis since this pandemic hit. And thank you, Jane. Now over to you with your story.
Thanks, Hilary. Thanks, Progress Place, for having me here. And it was amazing to hear your story, Tonia. So like Hilary said, right now I'm a yoga teacher, a meditation teacher, and I offer some coaching. But for most of my career, I was in the corporate grind, in the corporate world. And I was in digital and marketing, and I was good at what I did. I liked parts of what I did, but there was oftentimes something inside of me that just felt like, I need to get out. I need to do something different. And it's hard because we are raised in a society, especially in North America, where our identity and self-worth is often very much tied to your job title and your salary. If you think about it, when you meet someone at a party or for the first time, inevitably the question will come out sooner than later, what do you do? And you associate that with that people are valuing you, they're judging you, they're putting you like, oh, this is someone that I want to get to know further because they have XYZ job, or they have this job, I can just move on. So we spend most of our waking lives at work, working, and our identity is so closely tied to what we do. And that was a hard thing for me to really break and wrap my head around. I knew that since I was young, I wanted to be successful. I wanted to have a certain title, I wanted a certain salary. Check, 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 got it. Unhappy. But I kept chasing. In my last corporate role, I was up for a number of VP jobs, and I ended up talking to another bank for 8 months, talking to another VP I used to work with. And he was hiring for a brand new VP of a new digital bank to lead all marketing. It was on paper, my dream, ideal corporate job. If I could have written what I want to do, that was it. So I had been talking to him for 8 months. And on the day that he called me to say, okay, Jane, you're getting the paperwork drawn up. We want you to come in on Monday to meet with the team. Just an hour earlier, I'd been called from the hospital with an unexpected cancer diagnosis, which completely swept me off my feet. I was not expecting that. I was going in for fertility treatments, to try to have a second child. Getting diagnosed with cancer was not something that was even in my realm. And I thought to myself, this is a sign. And within the same hour, on the same day, I get this diagnosis and I get what I say is my dream job offered to me. What am I going to do? And I was in shock. Unsurprisingly, I was in shock for a while. And I told him, yeah, I'm going to come in on Monday. I didn't say anything about the diagnosis. Like, yeah, I'll see the team. I'm coming in. And then I went to the hospital after that. And I went in on Monday after I had all my appointments with the doctors. I still didn't tell him. I met with the team, talked to them, regular meeting. And then on Wednesday, I finally said, okay, I called him up and said, I can't do this. I just got diagnosed with cancer and I feel like I need to take this time for myself. And it took me some time. It took me some days to get to the answer, but I knew it was what I needed to do. And when I went into my regular job at work, I thought I could just keep working and, wait till I have my surgery and everything will be fine. Then I'll keep going through work. And once I'm good enough, then I'm going to go back to the other job because they said they were going to wait for me. That didn't happen. I came to work and my mind could not be at work. I was anywhere but work in my mind. So I said, I can't be here. I can't think of work right now. So I left on short-term disability till I had my surgery. And as I was recovering, I remember recovering, sitting on the couch. 6 weeks, I'm not supposed to do anything, but I'm sitting on the couch looking at my kitchen, it's beside the living room, thinking, oh my gosh, I should really wash the dishes. I should be cooking. I should be doing something. I'm so lazy. What's wrong with me? I'm so bad. Because I'd associated my whole life with my value is tied to what I do. And if I'm not doing something, I'm not valuable. Even if I'm at home, I should be doing something. That is my worth. And it took me a long time to get through that. And what really helped was meditation. I dove deep into meditation. Before that, my meditation and yoga practice was more of what I call a tool, something I would do maybe once a week. After that, it was daily, hours. I dove in and it helped me tremendously in my recovery. My physical, my mental, spiritual. And by the time I recovered and my work said, come on back, the other job called me too and said, we're ready if you want to come sign on. And I said, no. I said, you know what? I'm not going to take that job. And I also told my work, I'm not coming back. Whereas that wouldn't have been in the realm of the possibility of my mind a few months earlier. All I thought of was climbing the corporate ladder. And I was so close to getting what I wanted. And I walked away from it. Not for another job, but for myself, for my own health, because I knew deep down inside that's not what I really want to do. The times that I'd been the most satisfied was when I helped people. I had mentored many people and coached people, taught yoga, and I did that for free because I got so much enjoyment from it. And I decided, you know what, I'm going to just take this time for myself, do what I enjoy doing, keep healing, because even if the physical surgery has technically healed, I'm still healing. And things are going to work out. And I had that deep knowing and trust because of my meditation journey really helped me. So I know there are a lot of people going through stress at work in their day-to-day lives. With the pandemic, over 80% of Canadians have said their mental health has been decreased. It's been taking a toll. But there are tools that everyone can access to help them, be it through programs at Progress Place or other organizations, but even just yourself, your breathing. When you stop your mind from chattering incessantly, the monkey mind, thinking about the future or the past, your worries, your anxiety, and your stress, and you focus it on where you are at the present moment with just breathing, that's enough to bring you back to center. There are different tools people can use, but probably the biggest coping tool I would say is easiest and most accessible coping tool is your breath. When you feel anxious, scared, stressed, breathe. Because as you breathe deeply, as you inhale deeply in and out through your nose, not your mouth, you will activate your parasympathetic nervous system to tell your stress hormones to shut down and tell yourself and your body that you're okay, you're safe. So we have the tools that we need to improve our mental health, and there's lots of help out there. But I would encourage everyone to try different things and just find what resonates for them.
Yeah, Jane, that's fascinating. I imagine, speaking personally, I couldn't possibly meditate. I'm much too scatterbrained. I'm much too superficial. I mean, can anybody learn to do this?
Anyone and everyone can do it. And I am sure you are not too superficial. Everyone, whether they know it or not, has already meditated. Meditation is really bringing your focus and awareness to a particular object so that it's away from that chatter of your worries in the past or stresses of what's going to happen in the future. And you bring yourself to a particular focus. And that's what meditation is. And when your mind wanders, you bring it back again, over and over again, without any judgment, no criticism saying, oh, this is too hard, I can't do it, my mind wanders. That's normal. Our brains were designed to wander like that. It's a default mode network. Yeah. So it's completely normal. Like as we evolved, our brains were designed to think about, is there a predator around the corner? Where do we find shelter or water last? So we're thinking about the future and past because it was for our survival. But now our everyday situations, like a difficult conversation at work or a challenging relationship at home or worrying about the bills or even just reading and hearing the news, that's enough to turn on our stress hormones and make us think we're in danger. So meditation helps us to take ourselves out of that. And you've meditated before, Hilary, I'm sure. If you've walked, singing, writing, reading, anything where you're in the zone and you're focused at your task at hand and just present, that's meditation.
Mm-hmm. But when you say, you say when you left that corporate world and you went to meditation, you dove deep into meditation, that meant that you had sort of followed it as a pastime as opposed to, your new career. Had you always done that, or did you just decide you had to learn how to do it?
I had done, so I've taken 3 breaks out of my corporate career, which should have been a sign that it probably wasn't for me. Every 4 years or so, I had to get out. So in 2012, I had been at a company for a year and I knew it wasn't right for me. And my mental health was taking a huge toll. I got up, I worked in the morning on my computer, and then I went to work and I worked until late, went home, had dinner, and then logged on to work until bedtime. And I did that for a year and I was unhappy. I was stressed. I looked around one evening at everyone around me and they were all unhappy. They were all stressed. And I thought, there's no job here that I'd even want to create that they could pay me enough for, that I'd want to stay here for. And I decided to hand in my notice of resignation and take a break for myself. And I resigned with no job to go to, and I went right into yoga teacher training. So 2012, I trained to be a yoga teacher, and there's meditation training there as well. And I got so much more out of that than I expected. Obviously, the physical stuff, I didn't even think about I wanted to be a teacher. I just wanted to practice yoga more deeply and I need a break. It's kind of like a vacation, right? But what I got out of it mentally was so much more. So I had done it, and yoga is a moving meditation. Walking is a moving meditation, and it helped me throughout the years, but I kind of used it more as like a tool or a crutch. When things were going bad, then I would start bringing in my meditation. The difference was when I was diagnosed, it was an everyday practice. It was my daily work, and it was transformational.
Mm-hmm. And can I ask you, has your cancer gone, or have you had any recurrence of that?
My cancer is gone. What happened was it was colon cancer. So I had a procedure where they removed the tumor. And that's when they biopsied it and figured out what it was. And then from my surgery, they told me afterwards, so when we biopsied the tumor, the cancer cells are all the way at the bottom of the tumor where we cut it off. And I said, well, what does that mean? He said, well, that means that there's likely still cancer in you. It's likely still in the rest of the tissue where we cut it off. So we need to cut off, about 13 inches of your colon plus a whole bunch of lymph nodes. And I was kind of like, I don't know about this. I was more in the holistic side, thinking, maybe I can do this myself. Let me just take some time to think about this. And it's not for everyone, obviously. Some people dive right into surgery, which is perfectly fine. It took a few weeks, and I did ultimately decide to have surgery. But in the interim, I did a lot of work, meditating. I went vegan, a lot of internal holistic stuff, acupuncture, all these kind of things. By the time I had the surgery, they removed the rest of the stuff, and I got the biopsy results back. My oncologist said there was nothing in there. And I said, well, you told me, I remember the words were beyond a doubt still in there because there's adenomous puckering. Yeah. And by the time they biopsied, it's like, there was nothing there. And I asked the oncologist, well, why is that? And he said, well, if your immune system is healthy enough and strong enough, you can't sweep away the cancer cells. Our bodies are always regenerating. So I really, truly believe that the work that I had done had helped get rid of anything else that was in there. Yeah. And I have had, another procedure since, because of my age. They want to monitor me pretty often. And there was something, but it turned out to be nothing. And I'm going to keep working on my stuff and just live day to day.
Good for you. That's great. Jane, that's very interesting. Fascinating. I hope we have time at the end for more questions. But I need to introduce now our third speaker, who's Sophia Morgage. She has been a member of Progress Place for the past 3 years. She's currently enrolled as a full-time student at York University, and she works part-time supporting people with mental health issues. Sophia.
Thank you, Hilary. Allow me to tell you a little bit about our moderator, Hilary. Hilary Brown was the first female foreign correspondent for ABC News from 1973 for more than 35 years. She covered travel spots around the world, based in London, Paris, Rome, Tel Aviv, Washington, and New York. She was one of the last reporters to be lifted from an helicopter from the roof of the American embassy during the fall of Saigon. One of her reports later appeared in the motion picture, The Deer Hunter, in what Hilary calls her 15 seconds of fame. In the 1980s, she returned to her native Canada to anchor the 6 o'clock news on TBC in Toronto. It was during this period that she developed a strong interest in Progress Place and its achievements. She returned to ABC News in London in the early 90s and continued to cover wars, revolution, and general mayhem until 2009. When she finally hung up her flak jacket in 2015, she was named as an inspiration for all women serving as war correspondents. Hilary has a forthcoming memoir called War Tourist, available on Amazon in September, called War Tourist. Thanks, Hilary, for ongoing support. Progress Place greatly appreciates you.
The book is priced to sell. But once again, thank you to our panelists. First of all, I'm sorry. Sophia, now it's time for you to tell your story. I'm really embarrassed about talking about me. It's about you. Tell us your story.
Thanks, Hilary. I was 40 years old, living downtown, working at a freelance costume designer. I started not being able to sleep. Next thing I knew, it was 3 months and I was still not sleeping. I was disorientated and started isolating myself from friends and family, and I was also talking to myself. I realized something wasn't right. I didn't know what was wrong, but I felt I needed my family. One day, I decided to go to Brampton and see my mom. I was disorientated and stopped by the police for jaywalking. The police realized that I was not okay and asked if there was anyone they could call. I called my mom, who recognized that something was wrong and took me to the hospital. I spent a week in a psychiatric unit and was then diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder and given pills to manage my illness. When discharged, my family didn't want me at home. As a West Indian family, they struggled to accept my diagnosis. I feel alone and isolated. I was living in rooming houses, and eventually I stopped taking my medication. I was hospitalized again, and this time I was there for 2 weeks. I make a pact with my doctor that I would take my medication. My sister agreed to have me back at the house. Things were good for a while, but I went off my medication again. At this point, I was put on an injection which results in side effects. I felt this was the end of normal for me. I make a second pact with my doctor that I would take my medication myself, and luckily he trusted me. My mom encouraged me to take my medication and said it was just like having diabetes. If you don't take your medication, you'll get sick. Thinking about it in those terms worked. I started to feel like the illness wasn't controlling me. I made the move back to the city, but it was lonely. I was living in a tiny apartment with just a hot plate. I was feeling isolated. A colleague of my psychiatrist suggests I check out Progress Place, who runs a program called the Clubhouse. When I came to the Clubhouse, it wasn't what I expected. It was so welcoming and had a sense of community, different than the clinical setting that I was used to. I started coming in 3 to 4 times a week, helping out in the cafe and in the boutique. I could feel my confidence growing. I started to have hope and was thinking about my future. I started thinking about giving back and being able to use my experience to help others. I spoke with my contact person, that is what we call a workers at Progress Place, about going back to school. I was worried that my brain might not work the same, but the support from the Clubhouse helped me to take that step. I wouldn't know unless I tried. I decided to apply for the social service program at George Brown. The Clubhouse connected me with grants and helped connect me to the accessibility department, who helped support me through my schooling. I was nervous about going back, but quickly realized it was the right choice. I got to meet a lot of different people with different backgrounds. The Clubhouse was supportive, and it was helpful to be able to come by, get support around not just my education, but my mental health as well. During my second and final year of college, I saw posting for an independent part-time job in my field. I applied and got a job. Finding an employer that I feel comfortable with and knows about my illness has been helpful. Not that I think this is absolutely necessary for my next job, but it has been helpful at this point. I was excited to work in my field, but was thinking about what was next. I had always thought about university, but felt my time has run out. I spoke about it with my contact worker and decided to apply to University for General Arts and Science, and I was accepted. I started in September and I'm continuing to work at my job. One thing I was struggling was my house, and I was spending a lot of money on takeout. That's like when I couldn't get to the Clubhouse, as there wasn't much you could cook on a hot plate. It was also dark and had other issues, but living in the city is expensive and somewhat affordable. Then one day, I received a call from the clubhouse. I had applied for a housing and there was a vacancy. I took it and now live in a wonderful apartment with the support of a clubhouse. All the pieces have come together, and my end goal is to finish my degree and get a dog. It surprises me that I've come this far, but I have such a deep appreciation for my journey and the people who have helped me along the way. Before, I could only see day to day. Now I see the future ahead of me. Even in a pandemic, I'm so grateful to be working and going to school to fulfill my dreams. Having a supportive work environment is really important. I feel I have lost my voice, and the clubhouse support me in finding it again.
Can you remember why you stopped taking your meds? To do that?
I just wanted some form of normalcy in the terms of like, if I wasn't taking my meds and I was fine and I went years without taking medication. So I thought I'd just revert to that.
Yes, you felt that you kicked it, you were better, and so you could stop taking your meds. Yeah. But
yes.
That isn't the case, is it? So now, are you better with that? You do continue?
Yes, I take my meds now, and I realize I need to. And like the analogy that my mom gave was very helpful. So I took my meds.
Yeah. And how about telling your employees? You said at work you disclosed, your problems with mental illness. How did that play out? That must have taken a lot of courage.
It played out because they accepted it, and I felt like I wasn't hiding anything, and I could just naturally be me.
Mm-hmm. So, and was there anybody else at work that had the similar kind of background or had similar experience?
Yes.
There were?
Yes.
And so did you bond with them?
Yes, I did.
And that would did they have a connection with Progress Place?
No, they didn't, but he's definitely an inspiration. He's a core worker, and we share similar stories of going off medication, and it was helpful to know that it's common and you're not alone in this. Mm-hmm. And we're supported by the company that we work.
Yeah. What company is that? Or do you not want to say? You'd rather not say. Sorry.
Right.
Okay. Well, Sophia, that's great. That's really a very interesting story. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And a big thanks to all our panelists, Tonia, Sophia, and Jane. And there does seem to be a common thread here of perseverance, drive that you've all shown in your lives in spite of many challenges. And it's clear that taking care of yourself is so important, especially as highlighted during the pandemic this year. Good mental health is just as important as good physical health. So now, if we have time, we could maybe go to the audience for some questions. Do we have any for our panelists? Let's see. All right, so here's one from Amelia, and this is for Tonia. What did you do to realize, to stop caring about what people would think of you, of your diagnosis, when you decided to disclose to your co-workers? How did you come to that? How did you come to make that tough decision, I guess, is what Amelia's asking, Tonia.
Mm-hmm. Well, I remember when the first week that I was in the hospital, two very big celebrities committed suicide, and that was Anthony Bourdain and Kate Spade. And it was a very big sign for me that I was in the right place, because I could have easily gone down that road. And I thought if those two people had spoken more openly about their mental health struggles, because I've searched the internet, there's not a lot on them talking about anything that they struggled with prior to committing suicide, that maybe they wouldn't have done that. And maybe if they had spoken more openly about it, that maybe other people would not go down that road either, and be brave enough to talk about their own mental health struggles. So it was at that moment, and it took me a year, like I said, to kind of get better in my own skin with my own story. But I was determined it was going to happen one way or the other. I really didn't care what people thought anymore about mental health. I really just wanted to be an advocate for it. And so many other people are becoming advocates for mental health. And that's the biggest reason. I just didn't really care anymore what people thought.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. I wonder, Jane, do you have the same sort of experience? You had that fabulous job, and you said no, you turned it down. How did you? That takes a lot of courage.
Yeah, I mean, mine was a different experience, obviously. I think a lot of it came to, I stopped caring as much about what people thought of me, and stopped caring as much that my job title was defining my worth. And honestly, the people that are going to be in your life will stay in your life afterwards. And you know what? I have the same group of friends. I don't talk to many of my old coworkers, and a lot of them are lovely. I have no issues, but that was that life, and this is a different one.
And you never had any regrets? No backward glances, ever?
No. I decided a long time ago that I would never live with regrets, because when I was younger, all I did was live for the future. Yeah. All I did was live for the future. In university, I worked 3 part-time jobs that were 40 hours a week, full course load, because I had to support myself. And I remember thinking one day, I woke up in the library and I thought, what if I died tomorrow? All I did was work for today, work for the next day, for the future. And I never enjoyed my life. And I was 19 years old. And from then I decided I'm going to live with no regrets. So everything's just a lesson. There are no regrets.
Well, and regret is an enfeebling emotion. That's what I've always said. And that's a mental problem, isn't it? Yeah. So just finally, what would you say was the single most important strategy for you to stay mentally grounded? Tonia, let's go to you first.
Sorry,
Tonia.
What keeps me grounded?
Yeah, what has been the single most important strategy, or what is the single most important strategy to stay mentally grounded?
For me, journaling. I'm a big advocate for journaling my thoughts down. That keeps me grounded. Exercise. I've always been a big cardio junkie. I know that if I take for instance, if I'm on vacation and I don't work out as much as I would, I can already feel my mental health starting to just go down a little bit. So exercise for me is key. And eating healthy. Those those are the 3 things that I do pretty much every day.
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting. What about you, Jane?
Well, it's kind of along the lines of one of the questions that's up on the panel right now, where they asked about, can you talk more about the meditation I practice? So meditation is what grounds me. And when I started the practice, just going to the question that I see, what kind of meditation did I start with? I started with loving kindness meditation because it was the easiest for me to grasp. So it's 4 phrases that you say over and over and over again. And I walked the halls of the hospital before my surgery saying to myself in my hospital gown, may I be happy, may I be healthy, may I live a life full of peace, and may I be free from danger. It was just, when your mind is racing, the easiest thing for me was to grasp to that. So I started with a lot of loving kindness meditation, and it transitioned in chakra, body center meditation, body scans, heart center. So I know the question's asking what type of meditation I practice now. I go day by day. I have an intuitive practice. I go to my mat, or I meditate wherever I am, and I let my body and my intuition feel what I want to do.
So it's every day.
Yes.
You do
this morning in bed. I was
every day. It's a way of life, really.
Yes.
It's a way of life. Yeah, well, that's Sophia. Do you want to address this question? What now is your best strategy for staying mentally grounded?
My best strategy is to actually appreciate the journey, which brought me here, and recognize when I'm not okay, because it will be like, you don't talk about it. It's something that's not talked about. But like my friends are like, tell us when you need a break, when you need a mental health day. So, and like Tonia suggests, just self-care, just journaling, going for walks, listening to music. And that seems to work right now.
Good for you. Well, this has been a fascinating discussion, and I want to thank all of you again for taking the time to, share your stories, which are very personal and really most affecting.
Can I ask a question?
We know that you're very busy. I think we've got to close. How quick is the question?
Well, I see there are some questions on workplace and how you support your employees. I don't know if Tonia can say anything, or someone from Progress Place, or questions on how do you support your employees in the workplace? And then also, do you have to disclose your mental health condition in the workplace? So I don't know if Tonia knows any of these. I'm putting you on the spot.
Yeah, you are putting me on the spot.
Yeah. Depends on the word.
I'm sorry.
So how do I support my employees? Well, because I was very open and honest about my story in 2019 to everybody who works here and every Sipologist that works for this company, that was almost become my full-time job, is just supporting people who are going through something. There have been people here who have taken leave of absence because of mental health. It doesn't happen as often as you might think, but we're 100% supportive of that. So, yeah. I think giving people a platform to talk is probably one of the most important things I do here. People know that it's an open-ended conversation here at Sipology. We talk about mental health all the time. We actually tease that help with mental health, right? So, yeah.
Yeah. And it's all part of lifting that whole stigma, it's all part of that, lifting that whole general stigma of mental illness, that it's an illness like any other. That it is an illness like any other, and it does affect so many people. It affects every family. You couldn't, I don't think you'd find a human being who hasn't had an experience of it somewhere in his or her own family or extended family or at work or wherever. But now I think really we have to wrap this up. And again, thank you for taking the time out of your busy days in our discussion of mental wellness at the workplace. And thank you to the employment partners of Progress Place, we'd like to say, who have supported the members' effort to get back to work. And today we have the following employment partners joining us. And it's long: Deloitte, Clear Result, Globe and Mail, Litigate, Minden Gross, National Club, Waterfront, BIA, Blake's, Raymond James, Ricoh, Stack Adapt, Sodexo, and Lesnar Slacked. So that's a long list. And thank you also to the Rotary Club of Toronto for your ongoing support and for helping us plan this event. And thank you too to our funder, which is the Toronto Central Local Health Integration Network, the LIN, all our donors and supporters, the Progress Place staff, board, and members for your ongoing commitment to mental wellness. We look forward to seeing you again at our very next virtual event. Thank you.